The Center for Teaching and Learning has designed several lesson and evaluation templates that are now built directly into Fanshawe Online. For the purpose of this video, we're going to focus specifically on the single-page lesson, but for a much deeper examination of all of these pages and the philosophy they're built on, visit the FOL Standard Template page on the CTL's SharePoint site. I'll leave a link to that page in the description of this video. This lesson page is built on ISW's BOPPPS framework, though you won't see that language represented on the page. Obviously, our students aren't familiar with BOPPPS, so we've chosen to replace that language with something they'll be more comfortable with. Let's go through the structure together. First, we have the introduction. This section of the page is intended to cover both the bridge-in and outcomes portion of BOPPPS. So, we'll get our students' attention, help them understand why the lesson will matter to them, and be clear about what new skill or knowledge they'll have when they're done. Next, we have the pre-reflection. This section serves the needs of the BOPPPS pre-assessment in an asynchronous learning environment. The goal here is to activate the part of your students' brains that already have developed some understanding or experience with this topic, no matter how small. If this is the first time they will have been exposed to this content, you might ask them how they've possibly experienced the concept, or a related one, in their personal lives. If the lesson takes place further into the course, you might consider getting them to reflect on a previous lesson that this one builds on. Moving down, the lesson content and learning tasks sections are directly associated with the participatory learning stage of BOPPPS. In this section of the page, you would include the main content delivery of your lesson, being sure, where possible, to provide an opportunity for your students to engage in the material in an active way. Remember, where appropriate, to include formative assessments throughout your participatory learning to help your students understand their own progress. Next, we have the assessment tasks, which represent the post-assessment in BOPPPS. It is in this section that you'd include summative assessments, but you can put formative assessments here too if that makes sense in your case. Then, closing out the lesson, we have the conclusion here, representing the summary stage of the BOPPPS framework. Here you'd summarize the learning that's taken place and, where it makes sense, start to lead into the next lesson, showing the connection between ideas and the bigger picture you're developing. So that's the end of BOPPPS, but we have a couple more things here. The next section is called Optional Resources. This section is different from learning tasks in one important way. Whatever resources I include in the learning tasks, whether that be a video to watch or a journal article to read or whatever, at some point I should assess my students' understanding of that material. However, in optional resources, I never would. The content I include here, if any, should be related to the lesson topic, but is extra only for those students who want to explore a little deeper, but there should be no negative consequences if they choose not to. And finally, here at the bottom, is a spot for you to include references for your lesson if you have any. And that's that. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at ctl@fanshawec.ca.